Hey everyone, welcome to the Metagame Book Club, Track 1 Game Studies, and we have Sherry Jones with us. And you're really going to like this week's topic, which is all about metagame, epitext, paratext. Can I keep making up texts and stuff like that? Would that work? Or no? Or are you going to give us all definitions of these?
Yeah, sure.
No.
Yeah, I will give you all definitions. I'll try.
Okay. so we're gonna get started with Sherry, and let me just move over to the screen so you can see some of her notes. So thank you, Sherry, for being here, and I'll go to the first one. Okay, it's up.
Okay. All right. So, okay, cool. Thank you. So we are in track 1, game studies, and this is week 3 of our track. And we are talking about the cultural and social dimensions of games. And the 2 texts that I have assigned, the first one is our main book, Gaming and Textual Strategies by Stephen E. Jones, and that was written in 2008. So I put the year there intentionally to give you guys a sense of the text, the kind of games that he's talking about and why they are relevant to his book. Okay, and the second one is the article, This Is Not a Game, Immersive Aesthetic and Collective Play by Jane McGonigal. And that particular one, she's talking about an ARG game that came out right after. Okay, so that was a pretty important article. I'm not sure if we can get to that article today. My main focus is to explore the book by Stephen E. Jones. So okay, so if you can please go through that next slide for me. Okay. Yep. So here's the deal. The book is really rich, but as with always my ambition, I wish to cover the entire book, but it's just not possible. So I wanted to introduce some core concepts that Stephen E. Jones discusses in the introduction, and we'll briefly go through some of the main sections from chapter 1 through 4. Some of you might have questions, and I have the book with me. I hope you have the book, and I can certainly flip through the pages that you would like me to cover. Okay? Page. All right. So here's the main keyword in this book that Stephen E. Jones is trying to uncover or explore is, what is paratext? Now, I don't know if any of you are a big fan of Super Mario Brothers. I certainly am. And I wanted to show you a book that was released a couple years ago. It's called Super Mario Brothers 25th Anniversary Book. And this book actually will definition of paratext. Okay, it's a book about the game. So explain a bit more about what exactly is paratext, and this will start to make sense for you. Okay, go to the next one. Oop. I guess we're waiting for okay, thank you. So first, what exactly is, where did the concept come from, paratext? Okay, so literary theorist Gerard Genette, he first introduced the concept of paratext to the study of printed matter such as books and manuals. And Gerard Genette will actually be qualified or classified under a narratologist, which is a concept that we covered last week. Someone who studies the structure of games. Okay, structure EMEA games in terms of story. Okay, how does a narrative give meaning to a game? Okay, so that's fall part of the narratology umbrella. Paratext itself refers to ends, references, or asks to the main text. So think of the cover art of a book, dedication, forward, book review, footnote, bibliography, etc. The Video Games with You by Stephen E. Jones. You will notice at the front, the cover of the book, there is a nice little joystick controller there. And in the back, there are several wonderful reviews of this book. And the front and the back, those are all classified as paratext, okay? And Jeanette argues that paratext acts as liminals that influence main textual meaning. Liminals means, you know, in a space, it's a space between spaces, so liminals. So some people argue that airports are liminals because airport is not a place that you stay at. You go through the airport to go to other places, so we call airport a liminal. So in that sense, if you think of paratexts, paratexts are liminals, right? That if you can go next.
And the reason why I'm kind of laughing
Okay,
about
cool.
this is because the simulation that we the simulation that we did on the Tibetan Book of the Dead, we were showing the liminal state. So it was the state between life and death. And it's funny to have that word also pop up when it comes to paratext.
Oh, well, yes. Everything we're talking about, I think, all ties together. We're just looking for new terms to describe what we've been already doing. So maybe toward the end when we have a big discussion, we could totally see where all these things sync, right? Because we're already doing it, practicing it. That's really great. So next, on paratext as threshold of meaning. So liminal is similar to a threshold. Basically, it's something to something that's emergent elsewhere, so a threshold, okay? So here's a quote by Jeanette.
Mm-hmm.
The paratext is for us the means by which a text makes a book of itself and proposes itself as such to its readers, and more generally to the public, rather than with a limit or sealed frontier. We are dealing in this case with a threshold, a vestibule, which offers to anyone and everyone the possibility either of entering or of turning back. So you have a choice. When you encounter a paratext, you can decide whether you want to step through it, through that lens. If you want to think about a lens, go through that and let that lens influence the way you interpret the world, okay? Or if you decide, you know what, I don't want to step back. So an analogy, let's say a paratext, I don't want to get too overly political, but let's say if I'm looking at Huffington Post
Okay.
and I'm looking at Fox News website,
Yeah.
I could decide to read about a same event through Huffington Post, or I can decide to read about the same event through Fox News. It just depends on what lens I want to cross. Those are called thresholds, okay? So if you can go next for me.
Yeah. Hold on.
Thanks. Okay.
And
So,
you're using so.
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and paratext, what you're using for is when she wrote about this, she was really referring to books, correct? That's where she originally came from, right?
Jeanette was really,
Okay.
it's a he, but
Sorry.
it's a he. But
Okay.
yeah, it was old. It's a very, very old theory. It's a very old. Originally, it is discussing just physical text, you know. And when he introduced paratextual theory, it allows us to study the book itself, relationship between books and other media that's created based on the book. So that was when paratextuality was very important for book studies. So paratext itself contains two spatial Spatial is just an adjective for space. Okay, so we're talking about relationship of things to each other in space. So here are the two categories. The first one is called a paratext, which refers to any text that accompanies books such as the introduction, the dedication pages, etc. So when you buy a book, whatever that's on the book or inside the book, that's called a paratext. Okay, and I know I'm pronouncing paratext and paratext very closely, but that's how they're spelled. The second category is the epitext. Really well. Oh, thank you. The second category is called the epitext. Okay, and the epitext is any text that's situated. So you're thinking of magazines. So another magazine book review that's outside of the book. TV commercials about the book. You have flyers created to advertise the book, etc. So in terms of space, epitext is the farthest in space compared to the actual book that you're talking about. Okay, so that's the basic distinction. Paratext, once again, is what's on or inside the book, and epitext is what's outside of the book that's about the book. Okay? Okay, so what exactly is the connection between paratextual theory and video games? Okay, so Stephen E. Jones, he's a professor of digital humanities. He brought back paratextual theory to game studies in this book, which what you have is The Meaning of Video Games in 2008. Okay, and he argues that games are cultural paratext with the purpose of the audience or players or consumers. So in essence, he's kind of continuing the argument that Johann Huizinga first started, which is that, you know, play is relevant, and play is tied to our culture, is the development of culture. Now, Jones said that, well, video games, basically, if you read into video games, they contain culture, okay? And also they influence culture. So they are really important mediums for cultural studies. Okay, and if you can go to next for me. Ah, there we go. So, social text, and it's okay to not scroll back, but games, particularly, he's not talking about, Jones is not saying that games is just a text, like a book, okay? He's saying they're very different than just a book. They are created by social meaning, okay? A group of people have to be participating in order to give video game meaning. And here is a quote that explains what he means by this, okay? So he says, a video game, however, is a system designed such that it only fulfills its potential for meaning when its specific technical features, from the code to the interface to the rule set to the player stats, are expressed as the game makes its way into the world, when it's played. The playing is always in the social world, always a complicated experience, never purely formal, any more than the text is purely a verbal construct. So, what is he saying here? He is saying that. Oh, do you mind going back? Sorry.
Oh yeah, sure.
Sorry about that. Okay, so when you're playing a video game, even if you're playing alone, you are still part of the community of players because someone created that game for you to play. So you're interacting with the designer who created that game, and also the cultural meanings that's encapsulated in the game itself. So no matter what, you players, that's what he's saying. And video games have to be played in order to be meaningful. Games sit alone without playing it. If you can't really read a video game, okay, he's saying that you have to play it for it to be meaningful. So that's what he's meaning there. So now we can go next. Okay, so he says a little more there, and this time he actually references Huizinga. Okay, he says, on the meaning of play video games, all play means something, yes, and this I fully agree with. The play of video gameplay in particular are ultimately connected to social and material realities rather than offering merely a means to escape from those realities as it's widely believed. Okay? Playing usually involves remaining simultaneously aware of both the game world and of the real world, of yourself and of other plays as performing at the boundary of the two. So, one thing that he does agree with Housing that the play is meaningful, okay? The play acts can be meaningful. But he's saying that it's not an escapism, okay? Most people think of video games because they just want to escape from reality. For some, okay, so release from the reality as a catharsis from. But it doesn't just mean that. Because I think, Kay, you talked about this last time, playing WoW, but at the same time to the simulation, so they don't feel. Think about that relationship. They don't feel threatened and WoW, and I don't know if it's because that they're in a game as well as in the real life. What do you think?
Well, when it comes to that, I mean, I think it's something about immersion, and Blue's on here now too, so he could definitely speak to it. But I mean, first when going into like virtual worlds like Second Life and stuff like that, most of the people report, will tell you that if they drop their avatar from a height or they accidentally go over something, they kind of feel it. But then after a while, it's no longer there. You can decently separate yourself from that, and it's kind of the same thing in World of Warcraft, especially as you get used to the game mechanics that would say threaten your character, or cause your character to have problems in completing a task or doing the in-world dying. That after a while, after you get used to them, you don't kind of have the same shock. Your blood your heart doesn't start racing. You don't hold your breath to see if you're going to get done with that, if you're going to be able to make it, if you're going to survive and stuff like that. I mean, that kind of thrill is what a lot of people do like, and that's why they like new content. But I would say for a lot of people, and especially now, most gamers I know have a second screen up with something else. So they might have the screen with the game on, but then they have their cell phone, and they're checking text. Or, quite honestly, it's very popular among the tweens right now, is that, and even younger, that you'll be playing Minecraft. And then you'll have borrowed mom's iPad, and you're playing a Minecraft video next to you. Next to you as you're playing Minecraft, and you divert your attention back and forth, and people take calls and stuff like that. So I'd say with the advent of the second screen and even like third and fourth screen, that a lot of people do things besides just play.
That's I'm thinking that's really interesting about the second screen phenomenon, and I'm wondering if that is part of our desire to kind of have a foot immersed in a game world. Because I myself, when I play games, I also have a second screen or third screen going at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about what I need to do,
Yes.
what I need to grade.
It doesn't help multitasking.
While I'm playing a game.
Yeah, and I will. Well, I will tell you, not all of our educators have like a lot of our educators in our guild, play on their laptop. But those who are playing on desktops, they're usually playing on their high-powered desktop. So they usually have at least two screens. So, even in the desktop, they have two viewers, and if I was to guess, I really think it's more about wanting to be connected. And connected with people who are outside the game while you're playing.
Right.
And I mean, sorry,
And
but I think it's. Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Like, I know mostly we're just talking about multiplayer games, but I mean, like, I feel like now it seems that that's what people want to do. It's a way to connect with people on a different level. Like, if you're just playing a singular solo game, you can be doing that, but I mean, I don't know what the statistics are. I'm gonna have to look at it, but I feel like there are more people playing multiplayer games than they do the single player because of that connection. It gives them a way to interact with everyone else.
Yeah, and think about Twitch TV. I mean, you're the Let's Play videos, and Sherry, you watch a lot of Let's Play videos.
Mhm.
But the thing about that is,
Every
it's
day.
not that person. Yeah, it's not that person is so engrossed that they, no, they put their screen up so you can watch the game and watch them. So I guess I am agreeing with Jones that it's probably even
Hmm.
evolving from what he was talking about in 2008.
Right. Right. Yeah. Fairly interesting. I think we could go next, but I think we're going to come back to this later because this is all fascinating to me.
It has the word. Hey, your next quote has the word inevitable in there. What's that about?
Yeah, inevitable.
Yeah.
So he says, players make games meaningful, make their meanings as they play them, talk about them, reconfigure them, and play them again. They inevitably do so
Yes.
as members of various overlapping communities. Yay!
Yeah. I mean, can we just give him a star for that one?
Yes.
And I
So
mean,
he just go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
He's just emphasizing here that meaning is also contributed by players. So meaning is not like the traditional literary analysis sense, which is if you do a formal analysis of a book, you say all the meaning, modern interpretation, the reader response theory, and also other theories tells you that the reader adds meaning when they read the book. So same thing with video games, contributed by the players, and that was his emphasis there.
And
Okay.
and I
And we
would
can go
have to,
next.
yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry we're suffering a bit of lag.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
So sorry, guys. Okay. So next, Stephen E. Jones also talked about transmedia, but he makes a bold claim here about Henry Jenkins. I mean, he you
Mhm.
think of Henry Jenkins because he
Oh yeah.
came up with a theory there. But yeah, Stephen E. Jones claimed that transmedia is actually a derivative of game culture. So game culture comes before transmedia. And he says that marketers and fan communities are interested for different reasons in cultivating extensive feedback loops between users and products or forms of expression. Interested in the idea of user-generated content. All of this is old hat to gamers because, in fact, a good deal of it is derived in the first place from video games and their robust and savvy fan communities. The rise in recent years of the ARG, or alternative reality game, alternate reality game, a transmedia form of fictional play that is often, though not always tied into marketing campaigns, is the most vivid example of this development. So in that sense, let's see. So in here, what he was trying to say here is that all the culture, the gaming culture, is derived from marketers understanding what gamers want out of the game or more out of the game. So if you consider, he uses ARG as an example, but users also generate their own content, let's say a website that is devoted to a game that they really love. And please tell me you know of some WoW sites that you can reference here.
Well, actually, I'm pulling up our guild site right now. I have it up on the screen,
Ah,
and here's what. Well, first of all, what's really fun about this is because the picture here, and everybody knows what a meme is, right? You know, a meme. Richard Dawkins. The ideas live on and they breed. Basically, basically the thought that ideas breed like like you'd see in evolutionary psychology. Okay, and that's to throw out to Jerry. But last night we played a portion of the World of Warcraft game where things called Ravengers can come out. Now, as quickly as you know, like, and I'm looking at this. So less than 10 hours later, one of our members went went to a site. It's called a meme creator, right? And a yeah. So this meme is one of the usual pictures. Take this certain boldface type, put a little thing after it, and I'm not sure whether he found this, but it's definitely from a meme creator. I don't know if he found this or if he did this himself, because we often make our own memes, you know. And he's there, and there's a character sitting saying simply, "One does not spawn all of the Ravengers." And what he's doing is he's taking the raid that we did last night, where we got too many Ravengers, and we kept dying because we got too many Ravengers, and see, and he just put it up. So I mean,
example.
Yeah, other examples, we got screenshots here, you know, people showing the things that they did. Oh God, this is something that this was found on Tumblr. Now, this took a lot of time and effort because this is all the different kinds of characters you can make in World of Warcraft. And what they're saying is that if they could have a racial or an extra bonus based on what they're on what kind of on what they're playing, what would each one have? Somebody had to recreate what's normal for WoW and then come up with all of this great verbiage for everything. This would have taken hours. I mean, you would have fun doing it, no question about it. But this is a really fun interpretation of something that World of Warcraft will never make for their characters. But here is somebody going, if I could have anything I wanted. that this is what it would be. So this, you know, this happens all the time. And it is transmedia. It's taken from the game.
Great.
It's put on the website, put up on Tumblr. It's going from every place.
Right. Perfect example. And thank you for showing that. It kind of helps explain our quotes here, you know.
If I could share another one.
If you might go go ahead. Yeah.
I'll put it blues. Oh, let me flip back to you.
So one of the games I was exploring last year was Terra Online, which became Terra the Rising for free-to-play model. But it had like political content where people would be ruling different regions, different guilds would be in charge of different regions, and you actually there was a voting process for the players, and one of the things was letting people go to the guild and seeing why they should be in charge of this area, and it became like it was part of the game for if you're wanting to be a very important guild, you had to have a website, you had to have a platform, you had to have videos, and it was the way to get votes, and that was utilizing transmedia to push forward into the game. Not many games are like that, I have to tell you. But this isn't. I was looking for another one, but I think they took those down. But yeah.
Now that example, Blue, that you brought up is a perfect example, I think, of a metagame. Less as a paratext, but a perfect example of metagame, because I'm going to explain in a second the difference between metagames and paratext, but thank you for that example.
Oh, okay.
It's really great. So if we can go next, yeah, thank you. All right, so I'm going to go through some implications that I see by applying this theory to games, and particularly Jones is really talking about video games. I think it's applicable to both analog. Paratext theory allows us to study games, both analog and digital, as text, specifically a social text, of which its meaning is contributed by group participation. The theory also calls on us to study the relationship between social and cultural structures that surround them, so surrounding the game, okay, as well as the gaming culture produced as a result of the creation of games. So what I'm saying here is because connection between the games, what it's trying to tell us to do is look at both. We already have social and cultural structures that exist before the game. So those social and cultural structures obviously can influence the way a game is created. And on the other hand, the gaming culture that's produced out of the game is its own culture that's derivative of the game. So this theory allows us to look at both ends of the relationship. You can go next, please. Okay, thank you. So, other implications. There's really a lot of implications, but artifacts of the gaming culture can serve as context that mediate our reception of games. So that means, I mean, artifacts themselves are context, right? They become background information that mediate, meaning that it kind of alter or basically becomes a lens that filters the way we see games or how we understand games. So those artifacts of gaming culture is actually really important to how we understand games themselves, okay? Games themselves also serve as frames or critiques of social and cultural norms in a given time. So some games are created with criticism in mind. Uh-oh, I hear laughing. So who wants to add to this?
Okay, well, what I was going to do is, if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to show you some examples. Okay, this one is one that is happening in right now. Okay, in World of Warcraft, there is a rumor that there is going to be a new pet. And there's this really famous raid that people get nostalgic about called Molten Core. Well, there's supposed to be a new pet out there that's called a Molten Corgi. Now, somebody kind of leaked a drawing, and actually Cam, who does this with us, she went ahead and she made, she knits everything. So she knitted a Molten Corgi. So that's her interpretation of it. Then she got a friend to put it into a Photoshop of a screenshot from Molten Core. So that's what that's what you're seeing here. If you're talking, and then the friend went a little, you know, like made additional copies. but the thing of it is about reinterpreting this. What they actually do is Friday nights we do something that's called retro raids, meaning this is not the end game content. This is really old content that's really easy, that everybody's kind of nostalgic about, and they go back and do it, and it's really social because nobody has to try too hard. So everybody gets to do it easy, and you get to hang around and talk to people and stuff like that. So retro raids and then this knitted version of what they think a Molten Corgi is going to be, and here's it before it was Photoshop, is one of the artifacts of the gaming culture. This is one that's being developed now. And then I think if I go even further, and this is a Guild Flickr site. I think if I go even further, and I don't know how far I'm going to have to go. I'm going to have to go the opposite way, or just go back. The thing of it is, then Blue went ahead and he made his own kind of like logo of the Molten Corgi, and then did his own meme, and there it is for you. Keep calm and Molten Corgi on. So when you're talking about this, yes, a gaming group, a gaming clan, or a guild can just keep going with this.
Hoping to getting T-shirts, maybe some mugs done after the The book club plus mugs are getting done.
So I'm putting up your quotes now. And I think we're getting Sherry back. I think she accidentally dropped out for a minute. Okay, Sherry, I think you're back now.
Oh, the clones. There's two of
Yeah.
her.
There's two of her, but we'll get. Well, we had 3 or 4 corgis, so I don't think it's. But when you're talking about the artifacts, no, about our thoughts, fears, desires, and aspirations, we were just showing some things in our World of Warcraft Guild Flickr site that I think that Stephen Jones would. Oh, and some other pictures too, but that Stephen Jones would like totally get as good examples.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I missed the corgi. I heard about the volcano or the. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I hope the lag is taken care of too.
I hope so too. Yeah. So we'll go ahead and we'll go back to what you were discussing, but we tried to fill in the space with some examples.
Thank you. So anyway, I was merely saying that games can serve as critique or frames of social and cultural norms, and Kay just gave you guys lots of examples where it kind of reframes the way we understand something, and that's really wonderful. Okay, we're all on the same page. And then lastly, I was just going to say that games are an important playful and expressive medium that really reveals our thoughts, fears, desires, and aspirations. So why did I highlight that? Because simply, most people think of video games as frivolous things or playthings, but we've learned from first week how Zynga talked about such the important role that play plays into the construction of a civilization. Because essentially without play for Zynga, we wouldn't have any civilization at all. So through play, we create cultures. And in the same token, Stephen E. Jones is saying that, well, you know what? Games also reveals a lot about our culture and re-examines it. So my claim essentially is that I think that through games, we can see a lot about human thought and what we actually want to do with our lives or our fears of. Okay? And if you can go to the next one for me. Okay, so thank you. We cover 2 spatial categories for paratext, so the paratext and the epitext, right? And earlier I was explaining to you that the epitext is spatially much farther from the game than the paratext, or I mean the book from the paratext. So in terms of a book, once again, paratext is what's bundled with the book, so inside the book, on the book, so the cover or the forward inside the book, that's all paratext. And epitext is what is information about the book that's outside of the book itself, like flyers or TV commercials. Those are all epitext. So when we apply it to games, what are we talking about? So I gave you some examples to help you guys understand this. So in terms of a game paratext would be such thing like the game box, the CD disc, cover art, instruction manual, maps, coupons. So for example, coupons that says you can use this coupon to buy the next version of the game, will be way cheaper. That actually is a paratext. You have toys and game pieces. So toys and game pieces, I'm talking about board games. Okay, so board games usually, and I don't know, actually some games, depending on what kind of box that you buy, so if you buy a video game with a giant box, sometimes they do put toys inside the video game box.
Yeah, if you special ordered the Mist of Pandaria, you got like this really awesome Atlas hardcover book, beautiful art drawing, but I wasn't about to lay down $120 for that. But it was really pretty.
$120? Oh my
yeah.
God. Wow.
But it was really nice.
And it's inside the box then? So you buy the whole box and the books is inside?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It was a beautiful Atlas.
Yeah, perfect. That's a paratext. Game reviews, and I'm talking about in the back of the cover of the game box, okay? So epitext would be the other side, right? So online game reviews is not bundled with a game box, right? So you have criticism, game studies. So the fact that we're studying about games, we're all doing Epitext now. Let's play videos, machinima, Google ads about the game naturally, fan-made art and toys. So I think, Katie, did you show that that corgi, was that made by Cam? Is that what that was?
Yeah, Cam crocheted it.
Ah.
Cam crocheted. You know, she did, and it's not even out in game yet. It's only being discussed. But what she did was, you know, she found yarn that she thought would be the colors of a molten corgi, and she did it.
See, and I thought that was very cute, and that would be an example of an epitext, right? Because it's outside of the game, but it's basically homage. It's paying homage to the game, so that's really cool. Fan fiction sites. So I think, yeah, fan fiction sites, and I'll go back to the difference between fan fiction sites, why they serve as paratext versus what Blue showed us earlier, which is actually metagames. I'll explain in a second. We have video game trailers, those work, and I also drop in our reference, right? Metagame, Book Club, Second Life, and G+ community. We are all in gigantic epitext, essentially.
Okay. I was just going to show you one other thing. Like, Cam's our maker, so let me get this. Okay, see if I can get it any bigger. She made a life size creeper from Minecraft.
Right.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of scary if you see it at night, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I think that's why she did it.
Yeah, perfect. Epitext. So I think we can go next.
Okay.
All right, okay, here's the core. I thought that since we're talking about this concept, some of you guys must have seen certain parallels with paratext and metagames, okay? Given that our book club is called Metagame Book Club, I thought it would be right to kind of discuss the difference, even if Jones doesn't touch on this idea, but here's my interpretation.
Yeah, I think it's worth it too.
Oh, yeah.
So here's the general definition, okay, the very general definition of metagame. So any text, and I'm going to call it text, as long as we can get interpret something out of it, I call it text, okay?
Okay.
So any text that affects our game outcomes by influence our in-game decision-making. So while we're playing a game, it influences what we do inside the game or our game design decisions. So how I design the game is influenced by something else. So here's some of the example of a meta game, okay? So a game strategy site is something you read before you play a game because it gives you an advantage when you go play a game. Okay,
No,
so
you're reading it during the game too.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You could, yeah. Cheating.
No, it's not. We often, you know, the picture we showed you about Ravengers, you know, we stop, everybody goes and looks and finds what text they can find on the internet. Did anybody see anything that would relate to what's happening to us? Okay, what'd you find? You know, share the link, you know.
Perfect. Yeah. That's exactly it. So that's a definite metagame. You know, it helps you with your strategy. That's a metagame. It's like a game outside of a game, but you're still playing the game. In terms of game design, there are, you know, AAA game studios have often added additional game mechanics because the fan made a suggestion or that the fan made a basic version of a game that they thought, oh, this is very interesting, and they fold that mechanic into the game, so that influenced the game design decisions, okay? In-game mechanics, actually I've heard from the gamification community, they often love using metagame. Amy Kim, I think, referenced metagame a lot when she talks about mechanics in a game. So I gave you the example of points or rewards indicator bars that increase or decrease when player performs certain acts. So how is it a metagame? Because sometimes you do certain things in a game only because you're reading the points. Okay, you see, okay, if I do this, I'm losing points, so I better not do that. So in that sense, because the mechanic influence your in-game decision, we can call that a metagame. Okay, if you can go next for me.
And I mean, I wanted to add, like when we're talking the game within the game, I know one of the in games for WoW is the whole pet battles,
Yeah.
where it's outside of the battle combat. But what they were going to do Hearthstone in WoW, but then they decided to make it outside of it because they wanted to have it as like they could be playing this while they were updating and doing those silver maintenances that last for 2 days.
See,
So they
whether it's right, whether it's inside or outside the game, that's still a perfect example of a metagame because I think if I'm understanding this correctly, if you play that game, does that influence your WoW decisions, your WoW play game decisions?
I think it builds your lore of like how much you know about the game.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely works with learning the background or learning the lore. Could it affect things? It's possible. But I think it could. Where I see it might be able to affect things is that if you're doing a quest, having some of that knowledge from playing Hearthstones might help you figure out the quest quicker.
Well, maybe
Hmm.
one of the epic game was that if you started to play Hearthstone and you won like 5 battles, they gave you a mount
They did.
to own in game.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
That might be
I
epic
think
too.
it's still. So it kind of rides in the middle, huh? It could be metagame and it could be paratextual, but it
Yeah,
rides in the middle. Yeah.
it's in that gray area for sure.
Right, right. I gave one more example of a metagame, so character stats. Sometimes we review a game character's profile information in order to decide how to play a game according to the character stats. And I know that in certain, I mean, even WoW, you select, for example, a specific kind of character, and that character has certain weaknesses and strengths, and you're going to play the game according to or being influenced by the game's characteristic. So I'm going to rely on you guys to kind of give examples from WoW,
Oh,
because
okay.
yeah,
If you're saying metagame is anything that it's anything that understanding of game meaning,
not game meaning, not game meaning, but game action. So when you make decisions in the game, those are the things that influence your decision. So what I was specifically talking about is when the character stats, let's say they have more wisdom, but they have less in agility, those can affect how you play the game. That's what I meant.
oh yeah, yeah, that can definitely affect how you're gonna play your particular game.
And do you mind offering some example of types of character? Because you guys are experts on this. So do you know, can you give us some examples of those?
Oh, yeah, but yeah, yes. Let me switch, and I do have this up. And if anybody else wants to share their screen, go ahead and do it too. This is an undead. This character here is undead. The thing of it is, because of that, what she gets is and they're actually called racials. And I'm pulling up that's my character info. This is called a spell book. But what I'm going to hear is some of the passive things that I can get because I've chosen this particular character. And people do choose characters because of this. Like this one is totally because she's undead, so reduces shadow damage taken by 1%.
Mm.
Another one is Touch of the Grave. Your attacks and damaging spells have a chance to drain the target, and healing you for the same amount because of what you've chosen. And I mean there's other ones that are a little sillier. I'll switch ones. And blue if you want to, also because your Tauren has certain characteristics.
Yeah, we get the two things that pop off the top of my mind is the racial passive is we get 3% resistance to nature spell. Get one battle ability, which is ground stomp, and when I use it, anything surrounding me gets stunned for 2-3 seconds.
And it's something that's very specific and also is considered very useful. And the thing of it is, you can kind of understand it when you pick the character, but quite honestly, most people go to websites outside the game to find out more information about that when they want to do it. And
Right.
Grid, do you have anything? I'm pulling up your screen.
Well, I was just thinking the whole idea of reforging and how you have to constantly reforge. If you get a new piece of gear, you have to reforge, and that has a direct impact on how you play the game. So that would be metagame, I guess, and I didn't realize that before. And
Well,
also the professions, because as you alter some of the professions kind of give, I know mining, this one isn't a miner, but if you mine, it gives you strength in your hands or something. If you skin, it gives you some other kind of skill. I'm not sure what herbalism does, except for, I don't know. Does that, am I right in assuming
Yeah,
that
no, you are. And I have my right, well, I'm going to show right here, Lifeblood. Use your skill in herbalism to absorb energy and nutrients from the earth, instantly healing minor wounds and granting 2,880 haste for 20 seconds.
Oh,
yeah, that's definitely a metagame because it's influencing your character. All these little mechanics all over the place, they're all tiny little metagames. And WoW, that's why WoW has such playability. I mean, it's such a complex game with so many mechanics that everyone's experience, individual experience, must be very different from others because it just depends on your combination of skills, right?
Yeah, yes, it can be. And your temperament and fast twitch, or if you're a slower, more methodical player.
Right.
So if you could just, because I'm a little, I think I'm getting more clear on the whole definition of metagame, but I was under the impression metagame was outside the game, something that other people, not the game designers, created to play the game better. But from what you're saying, it sounds like metagame is also what the game creators have created, but you have to kind of figure out or choose to, it's sort of an option to use those things to play the game better. Is that correct?
Yes, and Kay, do you mind going to that slide before?
Sure.
One slide before. Yeah. This is worth discussing because it's our whole book club, right? So this is something I wanted to discuss, this distinction so no one gets confused. But yeah, when I was talking about the game designers, metagame is something, yeah, outside of the game, okay? But that somehow the game, if let's say a fan made a game themselves or wrote a site about strategies that, for example, WoW should have, if that somehow influenced how the game designer designed the game, that would still be considered metagame. So yes. Okay. But it's basically anything created that influence how you play a game, your decision making. That's the key word there, in-game decision making. Yeah, but if you're reading something like, for example, a fan fiction site about, you know, a love triangle between some characters and WoW.
And a character from Bewitched. Why not? Let's just throw it out there.
Why not? Does anyone know Bewitched anymore? It's not.
I don't know. I was just thinking. I just threw something. Okay, or a Seinfeld character, George Costanza. And
right. That can't satisfy as metagame. I mean, that's you know, that's paratextual now because it influence meaning. It's not. It has nothing to do with your decision making or whether how you design a game for strategy. So that's how. If I don't know, did I answer your question, Greg?
Yeah. I had, you know, the new part for me was the fact that, I mean, I always understood that it was outside the game and, you know, any person can create something, all the mods that are created, that I always understood that that was the metagame. What is new to me is that the designers themselves create bits of metagame here and there, like these professions, like, you know, these little things, like reforging your gear, because you can play the game without that, but if you decide to use that, it will influence your gameplay, and that's why you decide to do it. And I didn't think that it was also part of what the designers did. I always thought that metagame was outside of what the designers themselves created.
Right. I think, you know, if we know the Greek root, understanding the great rule will help solve that confusion, because meta does not mean outside. Meta means beyond, or say beyond the game or after the game. So things are after the game has been created, kind of thing. So when I say that in-game mechanics, you have the game, but every mechanic that you design, that you add to the game, can influence the player decision making. So I understand that WoW, you have constant upgrades, and each upgrade affects how you play WoW. Every single upgrade, you can say, oh, metagame, 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 because it still influences your decision. So it's not outside the game, it's just that it's beyond the game or after the game, and that might help with the confusion. Because I understand these are weird, funky words, so yeah. and Kate chose it for our book club, so you know.
I thought it sounded good.
Okay. So we go back to the next slide. I had a little bit left about paratext, actually.
Okay. Oh, you mean forward. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Okay.
Yeah, so just as a reminder, one more time, game paratext, when we say paratext, it really affects how we understand something. In terms of game, it's how we understand the game. So I gave you 2 examples. So game criticism articles. So game criticism is not like a game review, which is, okay, sometimes they say, this game is great, you should go buy it, this is how you should play it. Game critique usually is, it depends. It depends on the article. But some game critics will talk about the deeper social meaning of a game, or whether or not this game, for example, addressed gender equality, or is it being fair in the way it treats nationality. That kind of game criticism article would definitely be a game paratext. Then you have fan art. So I know that we saw Cam's corgi. That's a paratext. It's not like the corgi is going to affect how we play a game, but it's an awesome corgi. That let me see WoW in a different light, in a softer, more cuddly.
Well, no. The thing about it is, the corgi is coming out of retro raids, and retro raids are kind of the softer, more social side of World of Warcraft. They really are. Not a lot of guilds do retro raids.
Ah, okay. Lots of new words for me too. Fashion shows? Fashion shows?
Yes.
We'll talk more later about that. I don't know what this means, but
okay. It's what you think.
Okay, so we're going to go next if the confusion is cleared up, because I know those things are really close, but okay. So anyway, I'm going back, another emphasis, just to drive it home, okay? Video games are actually social text. So Stephen Jones says, the meaning of video games are functions of their use within social networks, which link up to other forms of media, text, institutions, and groups. The meaning or meanings of video games are constructed, and they are collaborative. So it doesn't just exist like a vacuum inside a video game, but we as contributors contributes to its meaning. They are made by social interactions and of various kinds rather than found in the software and hardware objects themselves. So Stephen E. Jones is actually, there's a hidden critique against ludology here. He's really against just doing, he said it's valuable. He's not saying, no, it's not, ludological study of a game is not valuable. He's not saying that, okay? But he is saying, well, it's not just, you can't just look for meaning in the software or the construction of where the mechanics are. That's not all that is to a game, because there's a social element that the ludologists are not really addressing, which is how do players contribute to this construction, okay? So we can go next. All right. So I'm hoping that this reference is current enough. Before, I had another reference for Final Fantasy VII, but that's my favorite game. I don't think anyone else remembers it. So I decided to put BioShock Infinite. Hopefully some of our audience has seen BioShock Infinite. But just to explain how BioShock Infinite is a social text, okay? So in order to create BioShock Infinite, you have Irrational Games, which is the studio, the developer that created it. Ken Levine was the writer of the game. You have 2K Games, which is the publisher of the game. Take-Two Interactive, they're the distributor of the game. You have game developers, and I can't even go into that. You have senior, junior, across, temporary. I mean, there's so many developers in the game. You have concept graphic and asset artists. So when a concept art, graphic artist, what they do is they talk to the developers and they say, okay, what exactly do you want to create? And they have to draw some concepts out. And once the game developers and the team decides that, okay, we like this concept, then some of the concept artists actually go ahead and create the assets for the developer. So developer are basically game elements like a character or a tree or a background. Those are called assets, okay? You have 3D object modelers. So BioShock, there's a lot of 3D objects inside. You have narrative designers. So narrative design is another category, and I do some narrative design myself. Basically, you create a story that goes with, that helps move the game forward, but also work very closely to the mechanics of the game. So anyway, that's another theory that we can go further, maybe in another lesson. Yeah.
Another book club, yeah.
yeah, it's too much. So we have topographers. So the fact that you see a font on the cover, right, BioShock Infinite, there are actually 2 fonts going on there, and someone had to design the topography. And even inside the game, where you have the text on the screen, that's also topography, and also the feel of the futuristic and also in the past that's combined in that game. All depend on the topographer making it feel alive. You have music composers, they're a big element to that. You also have beta testers. Basically, you hire gamers who are willing to play it and test out and see if there are any problems in the game before they can release it. And finally, you have the platforms on which you release the game. So you have PlayStation 3, for this game, PlayStation 3, Windows, Xbox 360, and OS X. Okay, that's the Microsoft version. So all that combined creates co-creation and co-release of BioShock Infinite. So when we think of a game, it's not this isolated object by itself. It's not somebody who just created it and here we go. There's massive number of people working on it, and every one of them influence each other in how the game should mean and should act. That's why it's a social text. Okay. And Kate, did you want to say something, or?
No, I was okay.
Okay, sorry.
I'm thinking there's a lot of potential for 21st century employment.
Oh, yes. And I mean, and if you wanted to, I can tell you the last time that the company that does World of Warcraft, that they have these what's called like a conference, you know, BlizzCon, and I saw part of the live stream. Like they had about 2 hours devoted to how the graphics are done, and it was done beautifully. You could show it to any student who is considering a career in that because of how much detail they went into, and showed how many different people were involved and how they worked back and forth. It was great.
Wow. Yeah. There's also, this is just a side note, but I've seen arguments online, which I think it's fine in itself, which is that teachers should teach like game designers. I just want to clarify something. Game design, most game designers are not automatically game developers. Game developers are the ones who are actually creating different parts like mechanics in the background of the game and the programming of the game. Game designers are actually thinking about theory on how to approach the game, how should the game start, where should it go? You know, they have certain design elements in mind. So when we say that, when we say game design class, that doesn't automatically mean you can say, oh, since you do game design, you must make a game. Actually, they're 2 separate processes completely. So when we put to the task that teachers should be game designers, what a very awesomely difficult task already in itself. But it's something to aspire to. There's a lot of elements to be thought about when we say you need to be a game designer. I just want to add that note in there. Okay. Okay. And here is on game meaning by social function. So he sneaked in an argument against reductive formalist reading of games. This is one of the big criticism against ludologists. And some ludologists do not agree that they promote a reductive formalist reading. And formalism is a study of structure, right? So some people claim that ludologists only look at the structure of a game and ignore everything else. So Fresca from last week's reading said, no, ludologists love stories too. We don't just look at structure. So in this sense, there's a bit of a straw man argument here, but I'm just going to read it out to you, okay? So Jones says, the meaning of games are not essential or inherent in their form, though form is a crucial determinant, but are functions of a larger grid of possibilities built by groups of developers, players, reviewers, critics, and fans in particular times and places, and through specific acts of gameplay or discourse about games. So he just really wants to say, look, we need to look beyond just the structure, the minimalist structure of a game. He can say, you know, if you want to look at Tetris, you can argue that it's a ludus game, okay? So it's just plain play, there's no narrative there, but you need to also consider what are the social constructs that contributed to the creation of Tetris. That's what he's saying in this quote. Okay. And next, please. Okay. Here's an example of a game's social meaning. So games also have social meaning in that it kind of cross over. A successful video game, when it resonates with the audience, it crosses over from just its virtual self into the social sphere. So here's an example of Big Daddy at a museum. And I don't know if anyone played BioShock, but he was a very big character in BioShock. And now you can see that's actually his physical form on display. Someone created a model, and people go to the museum and look at him. So that's an example where a video game's meaning has crossed over to the physical world. Okay. Next, please. Okay. So this is not part of our reading for this week, but I wanted to add that certain games does have a historical background, and I wanted to bring up Ubisoft as an example, okay? So Ubisoft, here's a quote, Ubisoft has always touted historical accuracy as a way to introduce unfamiliar settings to their players. And according to lead designer Patrice Désilets, the initial connection to Prince of Persia ultimately led the game to take place in medieval Jerusalem, Damascus, and Acre. And since then, Ubisoft has intentionally focused on periods that are underrepresented in gaming. This not only requires months of research and historical consultation, but also allows Ubisoft to promote the settings as unique gaming experiences. So some game developers have been tapping into history, okay, our real history, and try to bring it into the game. So here is where you can see that the game also kind of become a paratext of something else as a reference to real history. And just to throw a note to Ubisoft, they have been recognized as actually respecting history and try to bring accuracy to their games. Okay, next. Thank you. Okay, and on games as cultural expression, so this is just a reinforcement here. Jones says, sorry, cultural expression is a dynamic event, what Jeanette characterizes as a transaction, and thus it always involves more than the text or game itself. The full potential of video games is most fully realized by the kind of dedicated meaning-making, community-based players who call themselves fans. Okay, so this is a connection where the fans also bring culture into it. So we can go next there. Okay. I love this one. Just like Cam's,
well, yeah. I was gonna say, if you need any more, there we go.
You can always bring more. This is, I love this. I wish I had the skills for this, but this is, I think this is a latte, and somebody burned into it the Fallout Boy from Fallout. So he's the Vault Boy from Fallout 3. And you can see that this would be an example of a game epitext because it's outside of the game, but it's paying homage to the game. Okay, let's go next for me. Okay, Here's another one that I really like. The link is there, but it's actually by the game maker at stabyourself.net. So if you're curious, go to stabyourself.net. He released a game called Tetris. I tried to play it. It was very painful for me. I can't figure it out because I say, okay, how do you line? But somehow you can play it. And he's kind of playing with Tetris, right? Everything is linear and horizontal, and what he did was he just, jabbled it up. So you had to figure out how to line it, even though they came in different pieces. But this will be an example where it's not a game epitext, but it's a game as an epitext to a main text. Okay, so epitext again is something outside of the main text, right? So
and pays his
the main.
homage.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And pays the homage, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is basically, an homage to Tetris. I mean, we love Tetris. I do. When I play this, I got a joy out of it because it gave me a different interpretation of what Tetris could be. Okay. Let's go next. All right. So I assigned this game. By the way, this is in our G+ community hangout. This is our game studies question this week. So if you want to play it, the link is inside. Okay. But this is one of those. Oh, go ahead, Blue. Do you want to say something?
That looks amazing.
That's it.
Is it playable?
Yeah, the link.
Oh
the
my god.
link is inside. Seriously, week 3 game studies questions. Okay, please go there. I posted the question. The link is in there. I even have a nice question about this game.
I'm sending it to my English teacher friend. He'll get a kick out of it.
Well, they would be disappointed first, but let me explain.
But let me explain why.
When you play this, okay, this is an example where they kind of have a flimsy kind of borrowing. It's kind of, I don't want to say lazy, but they only borrow a few elements of the novel, and they call
Call it the novel, okay.
Yeah, Great Gatsby, the game, right? So it's a studio-produced game about it was NES, so the original version of NES, and it's available online. It's actually GreatGatsbyGame.com, so you can go there and you can play it. But you play as Nick Carraway, and Nick Carraway, from the beginning to the end, he's kind of drunk. He's drunk from the beginning, and the objects, like, he plays like Mario Brothers, okay? So he jumps around and he collects wine glasses and avoid butlers and collect coins.
Be avoiding police.
Yeah. Yeah, you start to ask yourself, like, what is the connection here, okay, from the game to the actual book? And this is one of those moments where you go, someone watched a movie, you tell them, you need to read the book. This is one of those moments.
Yeah, the book was much better.
Yeah. But you know what? You definitely should recommend this for English lit professors, because if they play or assign this to the students, this is a great way for them to test if the student read the text and do a comparison.
I don't know if they do that comparison paper.
Oh, you're right. It would. It would be a good one. Good assessment there.
That's what So this will be, again, I just emphasize, this is a game as paratext or game as epitext, okay? So that's interchangeable. So yeah, Blue, definitely go play it later and get a kick out of it, okay? So can we go next? All right. Now I went back. Okay, so I gave you several examples there. Now I am progressing through the chapters in the Meaning of Video Games by Stephen E. Jones. I realize I always am overzealous. I want to cover the whole book, but it's just impossible. So I can give you little clips here and there. And again, if you guys have questions later, please let me know. But in chapter 1, it's called The Game of Lost. And he is actually specific. He talks about both the TV show Lost, okay, but also specifically the big game called the Lost Experience, which is an ARG that is built based on the TV show. Now, Kay, do you mind clicking on that link that says Lostpedia? Do you see that link right there next to the image? Yeah, let's see if we can open that up. Okay. So do you mind reading a little bit for us, just a little part, so we can understand what it is?
Let me pull it up so I can read it.
Okay.
Okay. Here we go. The Lost Experience, aka TLE, was an alternate reality game, ARG, designed by writers and producers of Lost to engage fans and explain the storyline of the show. Oh, that's nice. Expand the storyline of the show during the hiatus between season 2 and 3. It was the first Lost ARG, although it was preceded by the launch of ABC's marketing department's viral marketing website, OceanicAir.com.
Okay. Now, instead of me explaining it, I know you're very knowledgeable on ARGs. So do you mind explaining to our community what exactly is ARG? Because I guess not everyone knows. So.
Okay, it's an alternate reality game. Basically, it's where you use the world as your game space. And Huizinga, and compared to Huizinga kind of did the magic. If you're just taking a certain interpretation of Huizinga said you had to get into the magic circle. Well, an ARG supposedly is different in the sense that the whole world is the playground, and things can show up anywhere. And what the idea of it is that you're playing it, and for the purists, they feel that you're playing it as if it's not a game. So what happens is it's like a mystery, it's like a puzzle. You continually get things that as you're playing along, and it's usually in the form of clues that are given through a transmedia format, so you can find them in a variety of things. So think of a murder mystery. If you had to believe the murder was real, and the murder mystery could just go on everywhere. So for somebody who's not really familiar with it, that would be the closest.
Yeah, it's exciting for the whole world to be a playground, and I never understand how people coordinate that well, but somehow it just comes together. So it's very impressive. And thank you for that. And if you don't mind going through the slides again, and I'll give you guys a couple of quotes. Yes, second tabby. Thank you. And I'm gonna just briefly discuss some of the points that he made, Stevie Jones made. So he says there, the paratextual elements of Lost work in just this way, as Porter and Lavery have suggested, becoming significant clues for hardcore viewers at least, those engaged in active interpretation of the text, right? So text in this sense would be the TV show, okay? The concept of the paratext helps to make sense of the effects of the ARG, which often includes intertextual literary allusions across the borders of show, game, and the external world. So paratextuality, I mean, we talk about ARG as in people can connect with each other all over the world through physical spaces. Paratextuality can describe people's connection of meaning from wherever they are, whether it's on a website or on a mobile phone, in a game. That's what he is talking about there. So it's kind of a parallel with paratextual theory in ARG. Okay, if we go next. Okay, and also he made a very interesting connection. He wants to emphasize that Lost itself is paratextual in that it's influenced by another game called Myst. Okay.
Oh, good times.
Good times. I love Myst. I played all of them. Yeah, I mean, I get lost in that story so much. I love stories, okay? But he made a very good comparison there to show you how Lost kind of took ideas from them. So it says, both the game Myst and the show Lost are based on open-ended exploration of apparently isolated island worlds. But both works also end up having hidden agents manipulating events, and forward momentum in each case relies on hidden portals as transitional links, elements that take the player or viewer, as well as the fictional characters, beyond or outside the apparent limits of those island worlds, to what amount to new levels with new increased challenges. So again, what is he doing here with these comparisons? He's trying to show you, right? We talked earlier that paratexts are liminals or thresholds, and you can decide to cross, go through it, or run away from it. But when you go through it, some people will put those elements in the game to help you go through the portal and help you guide you to a different world. So, and also in another sense, is culture also borrow from each other and builds on each other. So Lost, whether or not it took directly from this, you can see lots of parallels with the way the story is created. Okay. And next, oh yeah, okay. So I'm hoping that, I don't know, Kay, Blue, or Grid. I don't know, have you guys ever played Katamari Damacy?
My roommate was obsessed with this game, so I haven't played it myself, but I have to tell you that it has like a very hard following of people.
Have you seen it in action before, Blue?
Yeah, I have. I'm not 100% sure why it's addicting, but it's just him rolling a ball around and collecting objects, and then the bigger the ball gets, the bigger objects he collects. So he starts out really small, like he's in a room, and he can collect like paper clips, pencils, and random small things, but the more he collects, the bigger stuff. Like then after a bit he can start collecting the bed, the desk, the bookshelf, and then he can start collecting walls, doors, fridges, and then he can collect pieces of the house like the rooftop, the windows. He can collect cars, and he can collect people. It gets really crazy.
Perfect introduction. I didn't have to say much. You just introduced it for us. That's great. So I'm going to go from that image to next. Thank you. So here, Stevie Jones also has something to say about Katamari Damacy, okay? So he says, Katamari Damacy begins in a sophisticated self-conscious understanding of the interesting material relation of digital processing and display with various kinds of input, including the blatantly analog or physical input of pushing thumbsticks. So you're playing with that. But the game only begins there. Katamari Damacy's meaning lies in its implicit parody of the idealization of such activity, its parody of the sense that gameplay must, in order to count as significant, conceal more abstract latent meanings, or, in other words, a change in being itself, meaning metaphorically deeper than the self-evident surface fun of magpie collecting. So he calls it magpie collecting, which is, there's something else, and it just sophisticated quote here. He's saying there's something else operating, right, beyond just collecting a whole bunch of stuff. Mm-hmm. And Blue just said, you know, I don't really know why it's so addictive. Now, so he's going to say a little more. And Kay, did you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
Okay, it's a lot, right? So next, please. He'll say more. There's a three-parter to this one.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I know. Okay. I'm almost done. I'm sorry. So I needed to talk about, I love that Stephen Jones did some research on Japanese culture. This is very true. I mean, when I lived in Japan, I played a lot of Japanese arcades. So I'm going to talk about this, okay? So first, a Japanese arcade capsule vending machine called Gashapon that is relevant to the design of Katamari Damacy. So he says, he found out first, we're going to talk about the Gashapon, okay? As Chris Kohler points out, the name Gashapon or Gachapon is onomatopoeia, okay? It derives from the sound made by the machine as you crank them. So gasha, gasha, and the plopping sound of the capsule, boom, as it drops into place. So do you guys know what the machine, the vending machine, the little eggs that drop out when you crank the thing?
Yeah.
You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. In Second Life, they call them gacha, G-A-T-C-H-A machines. But I mean, it doesn't. Some of them have the sound effects, but some of them are they're just called gachas, and then they have like a poster that shows all of them, and then they have like 2 rare ones, and everybody wants the rare ones, but they're getting all the regular ones.
That's cool that they preserve that culture in WoW, right? Or is it in Second Life?
Oh, Second Life. This was Second Life. I don't recall something like this being in WoW.
I don't either.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a WoW equivalent to this.
Yeah, because I don't see them anymore. I don't know if I'm going to the wrong neighborhoods, but I'm not seeing these machines.
Like, maybe the closest thing I can think of is when you do Hearthstone, you get packs. So when you're getting packs, you're trying to get the really rare cards.
Uh-huh.
So,
Okay.
but I mean, like, it's that sense of you wanted to get something better on these new packs, which, I mean, could be similar, but I mean, I don't, you know.
Right. Just that the original machine. Yeah, they're similar. Just the original machine I'm not seeing much of, but I'm glad it's in Second Life. So we can go next. This is the last part on the... Let me see here. Okay, last part, okay? So this is he's talking about on Japanese arcade culture and fetishism of commodity. And this is one of those Marxist, criticism, okay? Katamari Damacy's apparently weird or surreal mixture of live animals, snacks, and toys and other objects is in fact perfectly normal inside the Japanese arcade, where UFO catchers may grab a plush toy, a plastic game-based figurine, a bag of chips, or, as one website reported, complete with posted picture, a live lobster. It's hard not to see this as the inspiration for the crabs waving their claws around them within the katamari on the cancer level of Katamari Damacy. Okay? So he is saying here, look, the game looks really weird to us and it makes no sense to us. But in Japan, obviously it's a Japanese game, it encapsulates Japanese culture and the desire to collect things and also the fetishism of commodity, right? So in that sense, and by the way, the live lobster, they really have a tank. You have a claw, right? And it grabs the lobster for you.
Was this in real life or was this in Katamari?
No. This is what he's saying that the Katamari Damacy, it has references to real life. I don't know if there's a lobster. I don't remember seeing a lobster where you collect a lobster, but there are lobster tanks in Japan where you pay, I don't know how many yen now, 10,000 yen or whatever. You put that in there and you use the claw to see if you can grab a lobster for dinner.
That's kind of cool.
Is it?
I don't know myself to get it because I'm all for those machines.
Yeah, I've seen crazy things. I mean, I've seen, it used to be you get a net, and it's not a machine, but you used to get a net and you catch fish, and if the net breaks, you don't get any fish. But now it kind of mechanization of this process. Now you can actually use a claw to grab a lobster. I don't know how healthy it is for the lobster.
Oh, yeah.
It must be very traumatizing.
Yeah, I would think so too. But it's part of that. Oh, go ahead.
Or if it's going on the Toy Story realization where the aliens were in the little claw machine were like, the claw, we praise the claw as like a type of god because it would take people away and like, they're free.
Right.
So maybe the lobsters would be praising the claw, like, I'll be out of the tank, thank you, save me.
Right. Yeah, who knows? If anyone see it positively, yes.
But you were talking about the fish trying to catch them with the net. That's like a Matsuri, a festival type game, where you like have this little paper net, and you have to catch fish that way.
Yeah.
Like usually like little goldfish, and they have like different colors. But no, I know what you're talking about.
Okay, cool, very cool. But that's that's before the mechanization. So it missed the days, and they became this thing. So. Anyway, the point is that he's just trying to demonstrate to you that games are also borrowing from culture. So when you study a game, you can actually understand culture that way. That's what he's trying to get you to do, okay? So next, I think we're almost done. Oh, goodness. Halo Universe. We have, okay, I'm just going to go quickly to the next slide. That's in his chapter 3. So he talks about this, and this is the big idea. Oh, and I meant to say Halo, so sorry about that on the meaning. I meant to say Halo. So as with the complex verbal text we study, we need to understand games such as Halo as existing as the center of a kind of spreading possibility space, a multi-dimensional virtual grid running off in many directions, the imagined vectors of any number of possible moves, performances, or instances of gameplay, all of which are contained in potential within the code of the object itself, whether or not any particular state of the game or sector of the grid is activated by any particular time. The whole possibility space then will be a model of the game's own reception history waiting to happen. Such a grid of realized and realizable possibilities seems to me the most accurate way to imagine what we mean when we speak of the Halo universe. So Halo started this thing where you have a universe of players and big maps, and also artificial intelligence that's driving the conversation between player and other players. So he is talking about this concept. He uses Halo to talk about possibility spaces and how one game itself can build a community of players. Obviously, WoW is a perfect example of this. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So game call for community. Not only is that if you play as a single player with a game, you're already in a community of players because someone created a game for you, and you're playing or interacting with someone's interpretation of something. You're already in a community. But later games, such as the MMO, the game itself is calling for more community building than what was known before. That's why game is also a social text. And that's why he's calling us to not just rely on a ludological study and not just a literary study. He doesn't want to read a game as a book, but he's talking about everything that's outside of the game that builds and adds meaning to the game. That's the deeper level meaning for Stephen E. Jones. Okay. And I think, so okay, are we almost there, right?
Yeah, we're there. We're
okay.
You want me to press it?
So, lastly, in chapter 4, okay, chapter 4, the chapter 4 is called "The Game Behind Facade," and I think you can go ahead and just play it because we can't hear the audio.
Yeah.
And you can go to like the 40-second mark for me once it starts.
There. Or it should be going there. Oh.
Just click, don't drag.
Okay, that works. That's perfectly fine. If you guys can't hear the audio, that's just expected from Google Hangout. But if you want to search on YouTube for Facade, the game, you will find tons of videos devoted to this game. Okay, some of it might not be so savory, so I would say that try to search through.
We say wear your headset. Well,
yeah, there's some stuff that's adult content, okay? But why did he go after this particular game as an analysis? Because it's very important. It is the first, I would say, it's credited as the first artificial intelligence-based interactive fiction game, okay? And what that means is, when you see on the video here, you can't hear them talk, but the player is typing text on the screen, so it says Gracie or Hottie. Yeah.
What?
Grace is an artificial intelligence, and she has to basically respond according to what you type on the screen. But the game designers have built in so many pre-recorded responses, voice responses, that every time you play it, it feels different. Also, there's a way, if you see, this is Trip right now. So you said something that angered Trip. So Trip was trying to push you out the door, saying you're not welcome here anymore. So things that you say also have consequences in this game. And what is interesting about this game? Why is this game social? Well, this game is very adult in nature. It's talking about two people, Trip and Grace, who's actually going through a marriage problem. They're on the verge of divorce. You just happen to come along and visit their house and basically have a conversation, and basically they're airing their entire dirty laundry to you, and you're trying to figure out how to respond to that.
Oh, wait, so you're playing as a third person in that apartment, is that right?
Right.
Oh, okay, I thought you were playing as one of the characters. Okay, I got you now.
Right, so on the screen, you see that where it says ouch? You're typing that. You, the player, are typing that text, and based on what you type, you have to wait till what the AI decide to respond to you, and certain things transpire in this game. But this game, when it came out, was called the future of video games because of this interaction between nonlinear storyline and also the AI. And it was a very, very early version of its kind. I mean, it's pretty old, but it still has staying power. So if you're interested, besides me going through the chapter, really just go look at some Let's Play videos on YouTube. Get a sense of the game. Okay. Goodness, I think we went, what, an hour 40 or 50?
Yes, I think so. Because we never do exactly what we're supposed to, okay?
No. So I do apologize. I can't cover Jane McGonigal's piece, but I have to tell you, it's very important if you really want to understand how ARG works and how ARG formed its own community, especially when the particular ARG she's talking about was created based on a few days right after 9/11 happened. So that article is wonderful to read if you're interested in reading that. Okay, and I'm done on my end.
Okay. It doesn't look like Grace is, though. Grace just keeps going. No, I think this is really cool, and especially what you're getting into now is really useful because we run around using the term metagame all the time. We develop ARGs. We at our last conference at the International Society for Technology and Education, we actually had the zombie apocalypse happen, and had the and they had the participant. We only got to do it for an hour, and had the participants respond to it. And so to illustrate how you would introduce one. So there's a lot of things that I think that this chapter you've really gotten us now into. You gave us a good background, and now you've gotten us into areas that we can talk about, on a daily basis.
Yeah, and those participant responses, those are wonderful paratexts for us to understand how the game worked, right? So yeah.
So I think that's about it. So we'll wrap it up with not knowing whether they divorce or not. So Sherry, thank you very much, and we'll end the broadcast. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye, thank you.
Really great.